what that does, it actually brings the turbocharger up to speed, pressurizes the whole induction system, so as he has 45 inches of boost as soon as he sees that green flag.
Now, if you're keeping a close count on the points, because they are lined up in the position of the points coming to this race, no point was awarded for the pole position. So it remains exactly the same as they left at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Interestingly enough, too, lining them up in the points, Derek, really pretty much reflected what we thought might be the qualifying lineup.
Well, exactly. I mean, some people do lose out, some people gain. But, I mean, overall, it probably was a reasonably fair way to do it. Here's one of these elevation changes. They come from the top of the hill on a downhill run to everybody's favorite braking area into turn 3. That's where we will see lots of action today.
Lights are off on the pace car as they're on the backstretch, which is also the exit and the entrance to the pits. The field comes into alignment now. These races can be whirlwinds here at Nazareth. They are magnificent and they are fast, but they also can spell disaster very quickly, as Derek already suggested. Now the pace picks up as Nigel Mansell brings them down. The yellow flag comes out. They say no start. The field will go around again. Like Fittipaldi lagged back a bit.
Exactly. Didn't like the formation. The starter has control. Mansell was 2 car lengths ahead of Fittipaldi. So he said, we only have a short lap. Let's do it all over again.
They come back into alignment once again. Again, it's very important to keep both temperature in the tires and keep them scrubbed clean. Though this is a wonderfully clean surface that Roger Penske has laid out here. Danny Sullivan was involved in the initial investment of this track as well. They very wisely had a local paving contractor as one of the people involved in the track when they moved it over from what used to be a dirt track to the asphalt oval and tri-oval that it is now. That warm-up lane on the inside, by the way, is an idea of Rick Mears, and a very good one. You notice it was copied at the Indianapolis Speedway this year. Now here we go. And the green comes out this time. As Nigel Mansell drops back a bit, Tracy comes sweeping around in the Penske cars, lead this race going into the first corner. Now moving to the backstretch. Mansell sits back in third.
Tracy was the one that got a superb jump to go outside Nigel Mansell, but look at this.
Mansell looking for any room he can on Tracy, and he's fighting with him. That's a bit of a surprise. When I saw him drop back early, certainly no direct intent of Mansell, I thought, well, maybe he's just going to play it cozy here on the first lap. But then he comes up to challenge Tracy, and now Boesel comes up to challenge Mansell.
Things happen so fast here at Nazareth. Lap after lap goes by in just about 20 seconds. But the Penske cars, as we've seen earlier this year, now commanding even at this early stage. But Boesel is giving Mansell all the trouble he needs.
Light is here for third as Boesel comes up, darts to the inside. Here's the braking area that Derek mentioned. And Boesel moves into third place as Mansell drops backwards. Still in a good position to maintain the championship. This will have to be for Mansell a very tactical battle here today. The front of the field, it's Fittipaldi. Tracy runs in second. They are not challenged.
Boesel looks good. You mentioned it earlier. Broke the track record this morning in this car. Did a 19.7, which was the fastest car ever around here. We do expect him to mount a good challenge to Fittipaldi and Tracy. But Mansell is lagging behind. He had trouble this morning in the practice session with a water leak in that primary car.
Of course, speaking of Raul Boesel, the practice is unofficial, so even though he broke the record, he won't go into the record book as having broken this track record here. Second place, Paul Tracy. Remember, he had that disaster at Mid-Ohio 2 weeks ago, leading the race once again this year, and then suddenly off course and into the barrier. Now, Derek, at the start, we were talking a little bit about team orders and how they might figure in. Already, they're coming up onto slower cars and begin to overhaul traffic. But what are we talking about on team orders?
Well, team orders will be he will help Fittipaldi by dropping back behind him if necessary. Team orders doesn't mean he would become a blocker against Mansell, but he will pave the way, if he can, for Fittipaldi to take away maximum points from this race.
Already encountering slower traffic, the two Marlboro cars, and they begin a challenge on one another as Paul Tracy looks to the outside. Let's get an audio update from Jan Beekes.
Paul, when you're talking about the speed of Raul Boesel, he is the most confident he has been all season. He says, I love the handling of this car. He says, boy, why couldn't we have had qualifying? I would have loved to have been on the pole. He also said, my car can go either way. I have my sway bars in the car right in the middle. If I get pushed or I get loose, I can make this car do whatever I want.
You know, the amazing thing with Boesel is we watch Mansell work his way through traffic with Gugelmin just ahead of him. This morning, it was still very humid. And out of the back of Boesel's car, the contrails that you normally see in humid air at the rear of the wings were actually coming out from the underside of his car, which gives you an idea of the aerodynamics on the bottom.
Exactly. Such was the downforce created by Boesel's car. Look at Tracy around the outside of Emerson.
Paul Tracy makes his move to the outside, tries to use traffic, but it may not work for him this time. That's Mashusta just ahead. It does work for Tracy. He sweeps well around Fittipaldi, and he picks up the lead of the race. But at the same time, moving in is Boesel as he closes in on Fittipaldi.
Well, he obviously thinks he can be more help to Emerson by getting clear of this traffic at the moment. An interesting move by Tracy.
So the lead changes as Fittipaldi gives way to Paul Tracy. And now Fittipaldi has Raul Boesel just behind him and ready to challenge. So the lead changes here in the early going with 11 laps complete. Tracy continues his lead in the Bosch Park Plug Grand Prix. Fittipaldi is second. The battle is here at third place with Nigel Mansell sitting just behind Raul Boesel. In that exchange between Fittipaldi and Tracy, Fittipaldi lost 4 points, something he can't afford to do, and brings us back to the whole team orders issue as Nigel Mansell tries to move to the outside of Boesel. Almost gets pinched to the wall. They split a slower car just in front of them. Whoa!
We said it earlier, trying to anticipate traffic and using it to your advantage can play a major role here at Nazareth in the outcome of this race.
But of course, to anticipate it, you have to see it. And at the velocity differences here, sometimes you're on top of the car before you actually realize it's there. And look at Mansell as he ducks to the inside, gets cut off once again. Now he has to handle up a pass on Robbie Buell. He does, and he continues. Now his pursuit of Boesel will stay on board with Mansell.
This is turn one. It should be flat. Yes, it is. This is uphill. Oh, look the way he reels in Boesel.
Jan Beekes, you have an update.
Well, when you watch these cars and you watch them diving through traffic, keep in mind that when they come right up behind another car, it takes the air away from the front wings. Most of these teams have put more front wing into the car for the race setup, but they cannot come right up on the gearbox. They have to hang a front wing out so they have downforce to keep the car so it will turn into the corners.
Continuing battle for third as we look back to the lead of the race. Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy is the leader. And they both, of course, encountering traffic as well. So you get an idea here of the speed and how busy it can be. As look at them work their way around Stefan Johansson.
And they are both 93 Penske's here, but Johansson obviously does not enjoy the same type of comfortable setup that Tracy does. But look at the traffic jam here as they go uphill over the top at turn 2 and then the downhill run to the braking zone.
And of course, if you are the fast car in overtaking, well, you can be surprised by a sudden move. By the same token, if you're a slower car, the leaders can come up on you very quickly, and that's one of the things the leaders have to look for, is to feel like there's an awareness in front of them. Moving back to Nigel Mansell in his battle with Raul Boesel. This is the fight for third. Arie Luyendyk, by the way, runs in 5th right now. Ray Hall is 6th. 7th is Scott Goodyear. In 8th is Robbie Gordon, followed by Eddie Cheever and Mario Andretti.
One of Mansell's strongest points, and we saw it in over-track races earlier this year. He is superb in traffic.
Whoa.
Look at this. Matt Schuster gets a shake of the fist from Mansell. Mansell was going to go outside, realized he couldn't do it, inside couldn't do it. Shake of the fist, and away he goes.
Mashusta here in the early laps has been running right down the middle of the track. That kind of move has occurred more than once. Now it's occurred with Mansell. And Mansell was not at all happy with it. By the way, Raul Boesel is the fastest car on the race course thus far. He is turning laps on a full fuel load in the 20s at 20.9.
Boesel is still embroiled in traffic here. Mansell seems to be able to take the chance just a little bit more than Boesel and is able to keep up with him. Danny Sullivan we see beside him running very slowly, or just behind them.
So as the field strings out now with 26 laps already complete, 26 miles of the 200-mile scheduled distance, we have been green flag all the way. We started with Fittipaldi jumping to the lead, and look at Mansell. Mansell and Boesel coming to battle once again. And again, Mansell is able to hold the position. But Boesel is very definitely there and very eager. Remember that Boesel sits third in the points right now and wants to protect that position as well. Paul Tracy is still our leader here in Nazareth. At the Sparkplug Grand Prix, we look at the interval leaderboard, and to correct the comment at the end of the last, of course, Nigel Mansell is in third place ahead of Raul Boesel, but you can see in the right column there the seconds and tenths back from the leader, Paul Tracy. Still very, very tight at the front of the field, but the fight is here with Raul Boesel now being challenged by Arie Luyendyk. Remember, this is a car that next year that Luyendyk is driving now will be occupied by Michael Andretti. Luyendyk is not scheduled to return to the Ganassi team. So today a drive for him is an opportunity to show other sponsors and other owners that he deserves a ride with them next year.
And he is looking for employment, but he's about to get the position inside Boesel.
Picks up an excellent opportunity, moving on Al Unser Jr. and moves around Boesel, sitting just in front of him now, the Craftsman car. That's Mark Smith. It is not a factor in this battle, but definitely a factor in the opportunity of Luyendyk to move up. Scott Goodyear now closes in on Boesel, and that is a fight as well. Boesel may be in trouble. If Goodyear can reel him in that quickly and get around him, as he does, Boesel must have a problem.
Clearly in trouble. The good handling he enjoyed earlier has gone away from that car now. We've seen some earlier pit stops, so I would not be surprised to see Boesel make a stop at the first opportunity that's available to him.
34 laps already complete. As they roll him off quick here, Scott Goodyear now looks for an opportunity around Luyendyk. Begins to worry him at the back of the car. This is a battle for fourth place.
Goodyear was not fast this morning during practice. Didn't like the handling of this car. If they started it on grid on practice time, he was way down in 15th place. They made changes to that car. It is back on Coney shock absorbers, and that car is much better. But look at Robbie Gordon now.
Robbie Gordon now coming up on the back of Raul Boesel as well. The question, of course, Jan Beekes, maybe you can help us. What might be wrong with Boesel?
Boesel has called in the car is getting loose, Paul. The track seems to be getting loose because we had two cars come in when we were away from commercial. Mauricio Gugelmin as well as Danny Sullivan both came in, said their cars